Welcome to this video. In this video, we're looking at token-based authentication using ASP.NET MVC web applications with web APIs. First of all, in our MVC web app, we've got our control views. We've got our Razor pages, which are created by ASP.NET Identity. And we've got our API for other client applications. And over here, we've got our controller views, which, for example, index.cshtml. Now, if we've got our client here, this is a client application, and this is a client as a browser. Now, if our client, start with our browser. Let me change my pen color to blue. If the browser wants to access index.cshtml, it can access it just straight away by requesting that from the server. If you want to access your Razor pages from ASP.NET Identity, for example, that is change your password, turn on two-factor authentication, manage your account, then you'll need to log in first through the browser, and then and only then you can access those resources. But then if your client app wants to manage some resources that you have here, wants to access these resources, then the client app first needs to contact the API with an email and a password. The API comes back with a token, and only then will the client be able to call the API again with the token, requesting those services, and the API is going to request those services, the resources, going to come back to the API, and the resources will go back to the client. Now, everything here is done with tokens. Everything here is managed by ASP.NET Identity, and it's got its own way of doing things using the HTTP context. First of all, we'll start by making a project. It's easier to make a project on Windows than it is on Mac, simply because scaffolding is easier done on Windows than Mac. Once I've added the identity scaffolding, I'll move back to Mac. So here we are on Windows Visual Studio. We'll create an ASP.NET Core Web App, model view controller. We can call it token auth demo, and we'll use .NET 6, which is new. No authentication for now. We'll add that later, and we can just create our projects. Once we've created our project, we can right-click on the project and add a new scaffolded item. And that item will be identity. Once that's added, we need to install a few NuGet packages and just wait for it to work. Okay, now we need to make sure we override all files, just because why not? It's just easier to do that. We'll need to create a data context class, application DB context. And we'll also need to create a user class, put that in the same directory with the same namespace. Application user. Now we just click add and wait for it to work its magic. Okay, so about 2 minutes later, it's done its magic, and you can see areas is created with identities, created a DB context, application user class, all the pages that we can edit, they're all Razor pages. We've also got program.cs. Notice .NET 6 is different. We don't have startup.cs anymore, and there is no main method. Everything is just there altogether. Okay, now we're back on Mac. First thing we need to do is go into app settings.json and add a signing key. So I'll add a new section called keys. We'll put in here signing key, or token signing key. And in here you'll have a secret key. For now, I'll just call it big secret key. Might want something a bit more secure, obviously. Also, I'll need to change this connection string. If you're using a database on the cloud, then you'll need obviously a different server name. I'm using a local one using Docker, so I'll put in my own connection string. Next, we can go into program.cs. And if we go into here, we can see obviously .NET 6 looks very different to previous versions of the .NET standard. We've got everything in one go, no main method. So over here, if we go into areas, identities, data, and pages, you'll realize that we don't have identity hosting startup.cs. In fact, we don't have startup.cs here either. So everything that we would have put here in there can just go in here. So I've got here, let me just separate this out so we can see better. We've got these services, which we can add. We've got a connection string. Okay, this comment should probably go here. Here we can add builder.services.add authentication, and usually in here you might see options.default authentication scheme and change the default authentication scheme. But because I want to still use my identity login pages, etc., that are here, login, change your password, confirm your email, I'm not going to change our default scheme, and we're only going to change our scheme for our APIs, because only our APIs are dependent on token-based authentication. So over here, we'll just do that, add authentication. And then to this, I'll add a JWT bearer. And you'll notice control dot, we haven't got that. We need to add a package. Right click, manage NuGet packages. JWT add JWT bearer. We'll add this with options. Options.events. We need a new JWT bearer events object. And in here, we'll put in on token validated our callback, which is going to be, first thing we're going to do is get the user manager, context.http context.request services .get required service of user manager of type application user. From here, we'll be able to find the user. So the user equals user manager .get user async context.http context.user, and then from there, if the user is null, then we haven't got a user, so there's a bit of a problem. Context.fail unauthorized, and then otherwise we can return the task.completed task, which should get us our user. Over here we need semicolon, semicolon, and in our options, next thing we need to do is options.require https meta equals false, options.save token equals true, options.token validation parameters equals new, validation parameters And we just again need to set a few things. Validate issue assigning key is true. Issue assigning key is a new symmetric security key. And in this, we'll put our issue assigning key. And our issue assigning key, we need to retrieve at the top. For now, I'll just call it issuer signing key. Next thing we need is validate issuer equals false, and validate audience equals false. Now up here, where we have our connection string, I'm also going to find our issuer signing key, and that is going to come from builder.configuration.getSection keys, and in there we have token signing key, and that can go in there. Now this requires an array of bytes. What we have here is a string, so we need to take what we have in here and encoding .ascii .get bytes, and put that in there. Now we can do that. Next thing we need to do is make sure we've got use authentication here, and because we've got identity pages in the areas over here, they're all Razor pages, so here we need map Razor pages. Okay, before running, we need to perform some migrations. So, okay, now we go into the terminal at the CS proj level directory, so this one here. We need to do .NET EF migrations, add create identity schema. This will create a migration with all the new internet tables, including application user, ASP.NET roles, stuff like that. Wait for that to happen, and then we'll need to update our database, and then we can actually run and see what we have so far working. Okay, and .NET EF database updates. Okay, that's all done. Before we run, what I want to do here is add default identity, sign in, require confirmed account. I'll turn that to false, because to confirm your account, you need to be able to receive an email. To receive an email, you need to be able to send an email. We haven't configured that yet, so I want to be able to log in without confirming my account. Now, if we run that, what we've got here is our website working. And one thing we forgot to actually do is add our login partial view over here, which allows us to register and log in. So I'll go ahead and do that. Go into views, shared, layouts. You'll see we'll have this new view here, login partial. We need to put that into our navigation bar. Into our navigation bar, I'm going to put it in here. Under here, we'll put in a partial view. Name is login partial. We'll end that there. Now, if we run again, you'll realize we've got a register and login button. So log in and register. I'm going to register with admin@gmail.com, and password is going to be admin123*, admin123*. We'll register, and it says hello admin@gmail.com. We can click on that, look into our account. We've got our email, passwords, two-factor authentication, and personal data. All of that is provided by Microsoft Identity, ASP.NET Identity, and we can log out, and that works fine. Now what we need to do now is configure an API so that we can access resources using token-based authentication. That includes logging in to get a token. That includes refreshing a token, and perhaps even logging out as well. And then obviously to access resources. So we'll go back to our Visual Studio, and first thing I'm going to do is go in here to controllers, and over here this is our home controller. So when we go to home here, this is what's called. Privacy, this is what's called. I'm going to make a new controller, new file, ASP.NET Core Web API controller class, and we'll call that values controller for now. We can leave it as that, and we need to just change this, mark it as an API controller. So over here we have a get ID, a post, put, delete. I'm going to delete all of these, and the first thing I'm going to do is put a get token. So this is a get endpoint to log in and get a token. Public iAction result, get token, and this will need this will get from body a login model. So login model, and we need to actually create login model, add new class, login model, and in here we'll have two properties. One is a string email address, one is a string password. These are passed in through here. Now in here, what we need to do is, first thing we need to do is we get the user. User is, and we need database context first. So in here we'll create a constructor, and in the constructor I'll take application DB context. We'll take a user manager of type application user manager. We'll have a sign in manager, application user sign in manager, and this is dependency injection. Over here I'll need a private read-only application DB context, a private read-only user manager of type application user manager, and of course private read-only sign-in manager, application user sign-in manager. We can assign these in. DB context equals DB context, user manager equals user manager, and then sign-in manager equals sign-in manager. Okay, so to get the user, we need DB context dot users dot first or default, where the user's email is equal to the login model dot email address. And if the user isn't null, so if we found a user, then we'll need to first authenticate the user. So sign in result equals await sign in manager dot check password sign in async with the user that we found, the login model dot password. And shall we lock them out on failure? No, let's not let this contribute to a lockout. Obviously you can do that, but just chose not to. If sign in result dot succeeded, then we'll get a token handler to start with. New JWT security token handler. We'll get the key, and to get the key, we need to do the same thing we did in program.cs. It's just builder.configuration. Sorry, this one, builder.configuration to get that. But we don't actually have configuration, so I'll go into there and make new private read-only iConfiguration config. And through dependency injection, we need to get that one too. iConfiguration config. Config equals config. And then from here, do config dot get section. And in fact, I can just copy it straight from here. Get section with the signing key. But remember, we need to encode this first. Encoding .ASCII.get bytes. Now we've got the bytes, we can just move on and create a new token descriptor. This descriptor is a new security token descriptor. The subject is the claim, and the claim is our user. So new claims identity. And this new claim identity is new claim. It's an array of claims with a single claim, new claim, claim types dot name, login model dot email address. So now our claim has the email address we've specified. This can expire in datetime.utcnow.add days, add 30 days. Might want to change this depending on what you want to do with it. New signing credentials, and the new signing credentials are going to use a new symmetric security key, which we have from our app settings, and then security algorithms dot. We use the HMAC. Here we need an equal sign, and we can now create our token handler dot create token descriptor, and then we can get our token as a string is token handler dot write token. And if we get to here, then we can return OK with a new object with a token string inside it. If, however, something goes wrong, we go down to here, return OK, we'll return a bad request. So bad request, password's wrong. What we need to change here is this iAction result needs to become a task iAction result. And what I'm going to do with this whole controller is I'm going to authorize. So this will limit its access to only authorized individuals. And to authorize, I want to authorize with an authentication scheme of JWT bearer defaults authentication scheme. This will make sure we're authenticated using our JWT token rather than cookies or the default identity schema. Now we've got authorized here, but to actually get our token, we're not authorized, so we'll put in allow anonymous. So this single method here, get token, is not going to require authorization. Now the next bit is also going to be a get public iAction result, get resources, This can be, for example, getting all the details for someone's order. Obviously, you'll need to request for that. Not anyone can make a request and get the details. So get resources here. We can just return OK with a new data equals this is the data that is protected by authorization. Okay, so this will only be accessible if you've got a token to authorize your request. Now, if we go back to our home controller, this isn't authorized, so anyone can access this, but you can't access our valued controller unless, obviously you can't access it unless through an API, but you can't access it unless you've got your authentication through your JWT security token. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to run this. I'm also going to open Postman. Before I do that, I'm going to go into home controller and I'm going to make privacy authorized. So not only people who are logged in can access privacy. Okay. Now we can run that. We can demonstrate what's going on. Okay, so if we go into home, we can access without logging in. If I go into privacy, it asks me to log in. We won't see the privacy page. It'll just redirect to login straight away. Now, if I log in with admin@gmail.com and admin123*, log in. Now you can see we can access the privacy policy as well as home. And I can look inside here. Now, if I wanted to access the API, I'll go into Postman and create a GET request to get the token first. This will be a GET request, be localhost /API/values/get token. And in the body here, we'll need JSON. And this JSON will be our login model, which will be email address called admin@gmail.com. And our password is going to be admin123 like that. We pass by, let's be sent by a client application that's willing to authorize their user, authenticate their user for API access. So we'll go into there. If we can send, we get a 404 not found. So we might want to add in here HTTP get token. Let's see if that works. Okay, we get an internal server error. That means we've got a problem here. Okay, so it appears I was getting an error because my signing key wasn't long enough. I've changed it by adding my underscore before it, so it's now my big secret key. Once I send that again, and I'll take away the breakpoint, if we go back to Postman, we should get a response with a body with a token. This token here, I'm going to use a new request. In our headers, we'll put in authorization and bearer, and then copy that token in. Once I've copied that token in, the new endpoint is this one, get resources. I'm just going to add in here HTTP get resources. We'll run that. And once that's running, go back into Postman and send that request. We get the data protected by authorization. Now, if I take away this header, I send that, we get a 401 unauthorized. If I put that header in, it's now authorized. So now I can use the website using the default authentication scheme provided by ASP.NET Identity. But then for Web API, everything's protected by the authentication scheme from the JWT security token. Okay, and that is how you authenticate using both an API and ASP.NET Identity directly in an MVC project. Thank you very much for watching, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments.